Jason, thank you so much for joining me. I'm excited to talk with you, and I would love for you to start out by introducing yourself and telling us what you do.
Sure, absolutely. Hey, thanks for having me here. So, my whole career has been about technology and really how do you extract as much value as possible from tech. So, currently I'm at Adobe and I'm senior manager of our digital strategy group. And what we do is I have a team, we quantify the value of potential Adobe investments. We run workshops. But what's been really interesting about my role as of late is I'm also part of enabling all of our sellers on how to use AI in their day-to-day tasks. And that's been a lot of fun. And I've been doing that for about the last 18 months or so.
Something that we ask all of our guests right off the bat is talk to me about the moment that you first interacted with AI, however you define that.
The first time I can remember, at least from a personal basis, I'd say was probably Siri or Alexa. And just the voice recognition with Siri was just mind blowing. How it could just answer my questions. And even back then it was impressive. And I thought it really helped me in the day to day. And soon I started asking it questions all the time. But from a professional perspective, I think it was that ChatGPT moment soon after November 2022. And I really pressure tested it and tried a bunch of different things. And even back then, I could see this is going to save me a ton of time. This is going to be a game changer.
What were some of the pressure tests that you gave it?
I think where I first went was just thinking about my job, right? Thinking about building these ROI models and whatnot. And I wanted to see what it was capable of doing. And it was really adept at making customer recommendations and whatnot. Now, it couldn't do math back then. It definitely couldn't do math. And it was amazing. Like it would get a decimal point wrong and whatnot. But what I did was I kept an eye on it. And every month or so, I would try it. And now we are at a point where it can do math very reliably. So I think it was a little hit or miss back then, but still impressive, just like knowing the promise of what was coming.
So let's take a step back and take a look at kind of the trajectory of your career.
Hmm.
If you want to go back even further before your career, that's cool too.
Yeah.
What would you say some defining moments are that led you to where you are now?
Yeah. So first, I think there's a really like a thread throughout my entire career. And early, kind of post college, I decided that I was going to work in tech. And the reason I made that bet was very deliberate, and I've stuck with it ever since. I realized that, finance or legal or writing, might change and evolve, and who knows the twists and turns. But I knew that if tech changes, but I work in technology, then that's going to be a road that I can really follow all the way through. And that bet has really paid off. Now, I've definitely had a few milestones within that journey. Started out, it was actually the dot-com era in the late 90s. It was an amazing, amazing time. And I worked in the data center space, fiber networks, and really just building out that whole internet infrastructure. And that was a really, really exciting time. But it evolved, right? It evolved into cloud. It evolved into SaaS and whatnot. And I tried to follow that thread all the way through. The way I made the pivot, so the big milestone, right, was how did I move from telecom, like infrastructure, into SaaS? And now I work at Adobe. And I did that based on just really sticking to a few guiding principles, which were, first of all, continuous education. So before I made that pivot, I actually took some courses at UCLA, just kind of getting my knowledge and my chops up on marketing technology. So that's number one. Number two was, I really knew the business. I'm based here in LA, and I know the biggest businesses here in LA. I have a really strong network, and that helped me make that switch. And then lastly, just having an open mind. And with those three things, when I went to that interview back then with Marketo, which is now Adobe, I think they saw that I had a solid foundation, and very grateful that they saw something in me. And here I am 8 years later, still at Adobe. But I think it's just really knowing what's important to you, sticking to that. And I think things kind of work out.
I want to dig into that a little bit more because something that I've noticed with a lot of high performing individuals is this idea of guiding principles, right? It's also like a sense of integrity, right? That helps as a guiding force in your life.
Hmm.
Where do you think you developed that even notion of I've got these three fundamental things that I need to stick to and that will help me succeed?
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, I could point to I am from the Midwest. I'm from Chicago originally. Yeah.
I'm in Minnesota. Hello.
So we could give a shout out to that Midwest hardworking, persona or whatnot. Maybe that's a piece of it. I think the other one that really jumps out at me is, without getting into too much detail, I actually started my own company right out of college. And to be candid, it was a full on failure. And I think failure really brought me to, I need to build a bedrock solid foundation so that we don't repeat that situation. So I think based on the failure, it really brought me to, what do I need to do? What do I need to create that's solid so that going forward, we're going to find success? And I think the failure really fueled me. I think it fueled me more than anything in my career, was just that experience. I'm actually very grateful for that happening.
I think that is a huge part of, I think, the tech world in general and innovators, obviously, is just embracing failure as an opportunity for growth. And I feel like that is a big shift in attitude from traditional corporate world, right?
Yeah.
Where failure isn't an option. Failure is swept under the rug and we don't talk about the failure.
Right.
And I think in the tech world, people are like, no, let's agitate, let's dig into that failure and figure out where it went wrong.
Absolutely. I embrace it, and I can, I feel like I can spot it early. I'm okay with it, but it's part of my DNA. And I think that is a really healthy attitude. You hear of these people who are successful all throughout school and all throughout college, and then failure comes, they don't know what to do with it. And I think that's just like part of my game, that like I get failure, and it's okay. And let's just fail fast and move on.
And now we're at this horizon of introducing this entirely new technology into our processes, and things are going to break, and that's okay. But can you talk about that process of bringing AI into your internal team, first of all? We'll talk about other stuff too. But talk to me about some of the challenges and what the signals of failure were and some of the signals of success were and how you can replicate that.
Indeed. And I'll go kind of macro to micro. So, because I've been at this for over 2 decades, to me, AI is just the latest technology wave, right? It's no different to me than, we're going to build websites, we're going to build e-commerce, we're going to build mobile, we're going to build social, and now we're going to build AI. So, to me, it's just the latest wave, and I don't treat it any differently. What's going to happen is, AI was not very good a year or two ago. It made a lot of mistakes. Now it's much better. And eventually it's going to get way better. The example I always give is, in the .com era, believe it or not, we had video that was just this small little window. That's all they were capable of doing. If you're going to broadcast like a YouTube video, is tiny. Everybody knew without a shadow of a doubt that one day it would be full screen. Look at us now, right? Full screen video. We knew, of course, that was going to happen, but we had to wait. We had to wait for it to evolve. So to me, AI, like, we know it's going to get there. It's just a matter of time, and I treat it the same way. Now, unpacking that a little further, how do we get AI adoption at Adobe? So here's what we've done. The way we're driving adoption at Adobe is, we've created this AI ambassador program where we have 50 people around the globe in every geography and every sales-based role. And they're on the hook to basically identify tasks that they used to do manually, now they do with AI. So we're talking about tasks typically used to take an hour on average, now are taking 5 minutes with prompting. They identify them, they socialize them within their respective role, and now we're starting to see that adoption. So we really have a program in place to drive AI and show people the potential time savings, show people what they can do with that extra time, right? Like, go focus on revenue generating activities, go spend more time with your customers. And people are starting to see the light. People are starting to really use it quite a bit.
Can we dive a little bit deeper into that? Basically use case identification, right? That process. At Writer, we definitely have a similar type of program management focus. What are the characteristics of a potential use case for AI?
So I'll start with the mistake we made
Mm-hmm.
at the beginning was, this is AI. This is how you use AI. AI is a tool, it's a technology, and here's how you do prompting. So I think that was a decent starting point, but we got a lot of pushback on, hold on, how does this pertain to my role? So the shift that we made was, then we looked at, let's say, a BDR role, business development rep. What are they responsible for? They're responsible for generating prospecting emails and generating leads. What's required in that? Doing research, writing an email, doing a follow-up email, scheduling a call. So that's where we got to the use case level of, how can we take all those tasks I just mentioned and leverage AI to do them much faster and actually create more leads than we've ever created. That was the light bulb moment where BDRs were like, sign me up. Let's do AI.
And we know that AI enablement is a huge challenge. I mean, that's really the hurdle right now, is getting to ROI,
Yep.
because it's about scaling across teams. You've got these individual incremental moments of productivity, but being able to say, okay, here's a entire workflow that can be transformed with AI. But it's also, I mean, obviously you want to equip sales teams and you want to sell at Adobe AI capabilities. So yeah, talk to me about the flip sides of the coin. Where are you seeing some successes, and what do you think, as far as selling AI to the masses?
Yeah, no, indeed. I mean, and that's an important distinction. And 18 months ago, when I really started to embrace AI, I made it very clear that what I was going to focus on is how to use AI in your day-to-day tasks. And I was very deliberate that I was not going to be an Adobe product AI expert. And hopefully you can imagine, right? If I did both, then I would just get absolutely swamped and I couldn't really be an expert in either area. So Adobe has AI dialed in a big way. We've been doing AI for a long time, with Firefly and some of our other offerings. I think we're really doing an impressive job bringing AI into the products. So that's that piece. And then as far as how we use it day to day, the truth is there are late adopters and there are people that are very resistant around using AI. And a couple approaches there. First one is the messaging. So the messaging that I use, at least, is, I like the quote, as abrasive as this might be, is that I don't think AI is necessarily going to take your job. But an AI expert, there may be risk there. I think you really want to categorize yourself as the AI expert so that someone else doesn't come in. For instance, for every role I'm seeing, we're hiring people that actually have data science experience, right? So in our digital strategy group, sellers we're hiring with data science experience. Isn't that crazy? And they bring so much to the table. So learn AI. So that's kind of the overarching advice that we give. But as far as late adopters, I love Ethan Mollick, UPenn professor, thought leader. Love his stuff. And his quote is, just use it for 10 hours. Spend 10 hours, allocate the time, have it up on your desktop, and use it for tasks. And within that 10 hours, chances are you're going to have that light bulb moment. And once you have that light bulb moment where you figure out, like, that used to take me 5 hours and now it takes me 30 minutes, that's when we all get hooked. So I'm just trying to be patient with the late adopters, knowing that at some point they'll have the light bulb moment.
Now, I know that you're focusing on enabling Adobe sales teams, but it's also about value creation for Adobe clients too, right?
Indeed.
So you have to equip them to have that conversation.
Yeah.
Most companies are in the very early stages. You do have innovators that are seeing ROI, that are already on the AI strategy train. They already know well, this use case needs to align with a business value. It's not just about summarizing an email, right?
For sure.
So, what is the big picture that you're equipping your sales team to sell? Right? What is that final vision that you are helping them to sell, both at an enterprise level, but also at a human level?
We initially thought the end vision was that AI is going to save you a ton of time. And we soon realized that that's not the right goal. That's not really the one that we should be working towards. The goal is really if you gain back 20 to 30% of your time, and through surveys, that's the number I keep seeing, right? That AI is saving me 20 to 30% of my time. If you get that extra time, what are you going to do with it? That's the $1,000,000 question. Are you going to meet with more customers? Are you going to build more pipeline? Are you going to work on more deals? And maybe, are you even going to close more deals? And this can drive revenue growth. What if it could unlock those possibilities? So I think to me, that's the $1,000,000 question. And that's what we really want to encourage sellers to start thinking about is what can you do that you couldn't do before? And I think the possibilities are pretty remarkable. And I will say we're definitely measuring that very scientifically so that we can see in a year's time what was the impact of AI. It's going to be pretty remarkable to see what comes of that.
All right, what are some little glimpses that you're seeing already?
Glimpses we're seeing are, people at least say anecdotally that they're saving 20 to 30% of their time. We've done some time studies where we actually timestamp their work manually and with AI. And I think 20 to 30% is realistic. And I think it's conservative. We're seeing that people are open to taking that time and reallocating it to revenue producing activities. But the most interesting one that we're seeing in surveys is in the early days surveys, everyone was talking about how much time they were saving. Now in the surveys, they're saying that we're saving time, but the quality of our work is going way up because of AI. And if you were to say that 18 months ago, that ChatGPT is going to improve the quality of our work, you'd never believe it because it was hallucinating like crazy. But now it's starting to cross the chasm there and actually up our game.
Is there a particular use case, either professionally or personally, that gets you excited that this has become my superpower?
So I'll go from really small on a personal basis to really big on a professional basis. On a personal basis, this is kind of geeky, but I love having the AI assistant next to me when I'm reading a book or watching a streaming series. For instance, I'm watching Severance. There's a lot to it. And everyone's rewatching the first series. I don't really have the time or the interest in that. So what I'm doing is as I watch it and I see all these Easter eggs and these nuggets that I forgot or I don't understand, I just ask AI and it will give me a full download on what that character did in the first season just to make sure I'm up to speed. So I find it's a really good assistant for that on a personal basis.
1 second. I have to geek out with you for a second. So I'm a rabid fan of the subreddit, the Severance subreddit.
Nice. Yeah.
And somebody just posted how enjoy each fact equally, right? That's something that keeps coming up as a joke now.
Yeah.
Is actually from a Kurt Vonnegut book.
Oh my goodness.
It's a quote from a Kurt Vonnegut book.
Wow.
And the plot of that book is very much mirroring the plot of Severance.
Oh my.
So,
all right.
Enjoy that rabbit hole, my friend.
I will. I will. And I will use AI to do it. That's brilliant. I love that. I love that.
Okay. So that was your personal geek moment of AI usage. Talk to me about some professional superpowers you've gained.
For sure. So in bringing that back to the career, I always like to look around the corner. For instance, with AI, training a tool on a bunch of data and then asking it questions is amazing. Don't get me wrong, a chatbot, but I get that. I've been playing with that for many, many months and I get how that works. So I'm really trying to look around the corner and pardon the buzzword, but I mean this for reals. I really do find the agentic work streams to be absolutely fascinating simply because it won't just answer questions, but it will actually take some of those mundane tasks off the table, allowing me and allowing my coworkers to just do much more meaningful work. So I spend a lot of my day just experimenting with different technologies, building agents, building capabilities. I'm really impressed with what I've seen so far. And to me, that's the next evolution that I'm following. And I'm really, really encouraged about what's possible.
Is there an example of an agent that you've experimented with that has given you a light bulb moment?
Sure. I mean, my team builds business cases. We build ROI models. So about 6 months ago, I realized that ChatGPT 4 Turbo could accomplish that reliably with prompts. But that's not really what I was looking to solve for. What I wanted to solve for is how could we build automation to build a business case? So without giving too much away, I was able to build an agent where I could say, build me a business case. And it's trained on enough data that it can produce a formidable one-page business case completely automated. And I say that really as an inspiration that that's just cracking the surface. These things are possible. Our world is going to change. AI is totally a movement. And I think that's just one tiny example of what we're looking at here in the next 12 to 24 months, totally overhauling the way we work.
So now let's imagine that you're having a conversation with the Jason who's at the beginning of his career. What's some advice you would give your past self?
If I were to talk to my former self, the advice that I would give is to keep looking around the corner. When I've done that, it's really paid off, but I can't say I've done that all along. And I think that it's one thing to be in a space and embrace that and really focus on it and learn it. But I think by always looking around the corner, I think it just really gives you the edge. A quick for instance there. Here's a time when I did it. And I'm proud of this, even though it was the wrong bet. So I totally got on like the metaverse train. I mean, every Facebook changes their name, like everything was pointing there. And I don't really have any bad feelings about that just because it could have totally taken off with virtual reality and AR. And now that AI is picking up, it almost seems like the metaverse might actually be like a sub piece of AI because AI makes that so much more possible. So even if your bets don't pay off, or maybe the timing was off, I think my former self, I think really following all of those different pathways, you get so much sharper. You have these really great experiences. And, more times than not, the bets will pay off, but it's okay if some of them don't.
I could geek out with you over the metaverse and how generative AI can shape that too. Uh, I think we've hit on this with your guiding principles, but would you say that there's a central theme or through line that's consistently followed you throughout your life?
I think it's that underlying focus on just technology in general, not one particular technology, but the other piece is the continuous education. So if you look at the milestones, from telecom to SaaS was the UCLA courses on MarTech. The sales to digital strategy group, I actually got 4 certificates at Cornell, finance, digital marketing strategy, and bringing that into the interview showed that I really wanted to up my game for this new role that I was exploring. And I think that really had a piece to do with it. And then lastly, I got my AI certificate at MIT. And that was really the trigger when everybody started to knock on my door and say, hey, we want to start doing AI enablement. Can you be a part of this? And I think that was really triggered by the continuous education. So I think that's very repeatable. And I would definitely encourage that with others as well.
And you're paying it forward too, aren't you? Because you're teaching, are you still teaching a course at UCLAX?
We actually are just spinning up a new series. I'm guest speaking tonight, and then we're spinning up a new series for the next quarter, which is going to be prompt engineering, advanced prompt engineering, building chatbots, and building agents. So we're really excited about what we're going to be doing at UCLA.
You were the first to teach this course. Is that right?
To teach an AI course at UCLA Extension. So we will continually reference that for the years to come because that was a very proud moment.
When people started signing up, have you noticed a shift in demographic from when you first started teaching to now?
The biggest shift I see, it is a younger demographic, which I really enjoy because they're more AI native. Like they get it, they use it all the time. So what I'm seeing is a shift in they're just using it more and more and more. And they're coming to the class with that knowledge saying, okay, so how do we use this for marketing use cases? So it's a really like welcome audience to be talking about AI.
That's like a whole other topic that we could address, but you've got stories in the news of people, oh, somebody lost his doctorate for using AI
Right.
in his dissertation, I believe, or in an exam. And at the same time, it's like, well, no, we have to equip our future workforce with AI skills.
Yep.
So, do you have any takes on that balance?
Yeah, I mean, there's an example that always comes up in every time we teach the AI course, and that's around copywriting. So there's obviously a job role to write marketing copy for articles, ads, blog posts, etc. Well, that's very easy to do now in ChatGPT. And so what we're doing is we use that as an example of there is still merit to that job for sure, but you want to use AI for your first draft and you want to use AI to get to massive scale. 5 years ago, you might have written one blog post, right? Now, when you're doing a social post, why not create 10, 100, 1,000 personalized to all of your consumer bases? So we're really encouraging the use of AI for scale because those possibilities did not exist before. Altering the role of a copywriter in the world of AI.
Is there anything that we haven't discussed that you wanted to talk about?
There's one more thing.
Sure.
So, as far as my philosophy around AI, there's something I've read and I think is really important. I mean, believe it or not, they were working on AI in the 50s and the 60s. And in the early days when they were experimenting with this, they were trying to replicate the human brain. And they learned over time that that was not actually what AI is all about. It's not going to be a neural network, a perfect replication of a brain. And I think we need to take that in our work in that let's not try to replicate, like, let's do this task exactly the same way, but just save a lot of time. I think we need to be open to the possibilities that with this AI, with this super brain, it may give us suggestions to do things that we never thought of. A quick anecdote. So, you know, AI, one of the big moments was when AI beat the world's greatest chess player. The next biggest moment was when AI beat the world's greatest Go player. In that game, and I'm told Go is a very, very challenging game, there was a move. It was the 37th move. And when all the Go experts kind of replayed the tape on that move, they said no human Go player would ever make that move. But it won. And that was the defining moment that won that match. And I love referring to move 37 in that what will our move 37 be that we unpack from AI? And I think when we get to that point, like, let's embrace it. Let's be open to AI having a different approach. And I think that's when we could really unlock some amazing possibilities. And super excited to see it come together.
I love this point. I mean, it reminds me of a conversation I had with Steve Walden, who's the basically head of AI at Vizient. And he was talking about these basically evolutionary shifts and creativity, right? That, yeah, you can have brilliant musicians, but the true breakthrough moments are when you're inventing an entirely new genre of music, for example. Now, his posit was that AI is not going to introduce that breakthrough moment, that is intrinsic to humanity and human creativity, because AI is basically just there to replicate or iterate on patterns. But you're kind of taking that and flipping it on its head and saying, no, AI is actually capable of doing what's impossible for human beings. And that can be a breakthrough moment too.
Yeah.
I love having that dichotomy of those two different ways of viewing things.
I think it's a partnership between the human and the machine. But if and when the machine produces something that shocks us, let's be open to it, right? It's our partner, it's our assistant. And I think just bringing those two things together, got to have the human element, but bring them together, I think we'll be able to reach new heights.
Thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me. A lot of fun.